So thanks, Krista. What we're trying to demonstrate is that we're looking at subpopulations and just looking at what are the particular problems with these subpopulations, just to help us to understand and figure out better treatments for these kids. So I'm speaking on myself, so I'm going to have to speak to time. So some of you may have been intrigued by what Carolyn talked about with the code game and wondered what that was all about. So it's based on a piece of work that we've done. So I need to declare a conflict of interest. So the Children's Hospital at Westmead has patented this idea, and we are in the process of commercialising it, and so I need to declare that. It's, by the way, caused great grief in trying to get it published, but we have now been accepted. So, as you all have heard all day, alarm training should be the first-line therapy for enuresis. Alarms train the child to wake up to a full bladder sensation or withhold voiding when the bladder is not full. Failure rates are quite high, and it's 25 to 35% in the best of hands, and often worse than that. And 80% of kids who fail alarm training say they don't wake. And so my thought was, can we improve alarm training? So some ideas came to me because we were just struggling with this group. So firstly, I read of an adult study that showed that adults were able to discriminate between sounds and wake during sleep if motivated. So they were adult men who had who were deep sleepers, and they were told that if you can wake up to the piano riff, you'll get $10, otherwise not. And they would sleep through fire engines and sirens, but wake up to the piano riff. So that tells me that if you're motivated enough, you can do it. So that was quite helpful thought. There's also a paediatric study that Caroline alluded to, the Van Londen paper, which showed that children did better when they were rewarded for alarm training on the night that, like, if they woke up to the alarm and they got a sticker straight away, they did better than the kids who got a reward the next day for being dry. So that's really what Melissa's been saying to us all the time: reward the effort, not the results. So those two together, combined with a patient whose name is Jack and his father who works in this hospital and gets a 10% share in our royalties, came up with this idea, and he told me about it. So he said Jack was really difficult to wake, and one day he said, I tried this trick and it really worked. So what happened was, at night time when the alarm went off, I gave Jack a code word, and the next morning he remembered it and I gave him a reward, and it really motivated him to wake. So I thought, that's a brilliant idea, let's turn that into a project. So we thought that maybe a higher level of arousal during alarm training would lead to improved arousal during bladder distension and result in better outcomes. And so we created a code game alarm which emitted a code word that the parents programmed into the alarm the night before. This is what we started off with. So the one on the left was what we built, and I'm very grateful for a wonderful man called Jeffrey Wickham, who was actually the designer of the cardiac pacemaker, who donated his time and efforts to making this for me, and he handmade 50 of these and personally drove it up from Melbourne for me. So wonderful man. This is an alarm that we used as a comparator. It's a wireless enuresis alarm which was not commercially available in Australia at the time. I wanted something that the kids were blinded to, so they didn't know which one was the experimental alarm. And what we did was we compared the code game alarm. The inclusion criteria was 6 to 18-year-old kids who wet 3 or more nights per week, referred by many of you guys, doctors or continence advisors. They were allowed to use the alarm for up to 16 weeks or until they achieved 14 consecutive dry nights, whatever came first. We did a sample size calculation and got 350. Randomisation was central, so we couldn't cheat, stratified by age, gender and severity of wetting. So we had equal groups of ages, genders and severity in both groups, and we followed them for 12 months. So the primary outcome that I wanted to see is the proportion of children who became dry. In retrospect, that was really too hard a call. I shouldn't have had that as a primary outcome, because a lot of kids get almost dry but not completely dry. One wet night a week, they're not considered dry. So anyway, secondary outcomes was reduction in wetness, proportion of nights they woke to the alarm, because I wanted to see if they woke better, length of treatment, number of people who relapsed by 12 months, and whether they liked the alarm or not. not any adverse effects. And so this is a very busy slide of basically the consort of what happened. So we had 380 eligible, 353 randomised. They were split into two and followed up. We basically lost 2 in each group, but we managed to find them in the end at 12 months for us to say, so what happened? So we got some retrospective data on the loss to follow-up ones at 12 months. So this is the table 1. So this is what the kids were like at the beginning. So they were pretty similar in ages, similar in gender, similar with monosymptomatic, and similar in the severity of wetting and frequency of wetting. And interestingly, down here, a lot of these kids have had previous treatment. Not surprisingly, by the time they come to our clinic, they've had previous treatment, so including failed previous alarm training and desmopressin. So we looked at their primary outcome, which is percentage who became dry, and 54% in the code word alarm became dry compared to 47%. Because we powered it for a 15% difference, this was not statistically significant. So fair enough, never mind. But when you looked at the monosymptomatic group, which is the group that is most likely to respond to alarm therapy, we actually did have a statistical significance. So there was over 10% difference there, 52 to 66, what's that? 14% difference. So it seems to work 14% better. Very, very busy slide. Let me walk you through. So this is just all the patients in the sort of left-hand column, and then this is the group with the monosymptomatic. And you'll see that the monosymptomatic group does better in everything. So the key things to point out is even though the group wasn't statistically significant in cure rates, it was statistically significant in reducing the mean number of wet nights. So in the overall big group, there was one less wet night per week compared to normal alarm training, whereas in the monosymptomatic group it was 3. And the number of times the kids woke to the alarm, this was tested by saying, for the control group, did the kid talk to you at night? And for the alarm group, it's did the kid remember the code word the next morning? And we found that the kids who used the code word alarm were much more likely to have woken. So that motivation seemed to work, and that's both for the whole group and also for the monosymptomatic group. And so in summary, there was no statistical difference between the alarms in the complete response rate when you compared everyone together, although, so I'm not surprised by that because we had a lot of kids who had treatment failures and non-monosymptomatic nocturnal enuresis. However, in all groups, more children woke to the alarm with the code word than to the alarm that just made a noise. And in the monosymptomatic group, the difference was statistically significant all the way through. So my summary point is that motivating the child to wake to the alarm and rewarding that correct behaviour rather than a reward for a dry night the next morning will improve treatment. And where we've come to, so this is the team. So this is Jeffrey Wickham, who's I'm really indebted to, and this is my research team that you've seen around, and James Macaulay, who's also one of the alarm designers. We also had a team at Macquarie University who helped us design it into an app, and now we've actually turned it into an Apple app. So it's on an iPhone, your sensor's going to be wireless in your pants, and it's really cool. So hopefully we will be able to have that available to us within the year. And also thank you to Jack who inspired us. Okay, did I do it in time? How many seconds have I got left? 2 minutes left. Minute and a half, you made it. Okay, so next one. Is the WATCH study. So the last 2 studies are studies that are ongoing, and we really invite the audience to send patients to these. This study's been going on forever. Can I just put a disclaimer? So the WATCH study uses a watch called the Wobble Watch, which when we got the funding to do this trial, a company decided to sell the watch, and so our recruitment dropped because everyone just went and bought a watch and didn't go in the study. But I have now heard that it is no longer available in Australia. So the only way to get this alarm watch is to join our study.